Hello and welcome to Find Your Creative Flow workshop, a space to create and connect and explore just what lights you up, just how you're expressing yourself and being true to yourself can really help you to get into creative flow. So, to start with, as you are watching this and as I'm talking through some of the ideas about creative flow, I want to encourage you to just get started. So, rather than thinking about creative flow as a theory, as an idea, as a concept, I'm encouraging you to be present with your mind, your body, your soul, and create while you are discussing and talking with me about all of this, while you are reflecting yourself. So, starting doesn't need to be complicated. You can start wherever you like with your art making. I use a sketchbook often, and sometimes my sketchbook has finished pieces, sometimes it has lots and lots of blank pages, sometimes there's things that I've been working on over a long time, sometimes there are just random things like something abstract or something that there might be a portrait and a landscape together in the same page. So it doesn't need to be perfect. Just see what happens, see how it evolves, so you can maybe get a start. So, in talking about creative flow, I want to encourage you to think about what being in creative flow feels like. What does it feel like to be able to allow yourself to create with abundance, to expand, to create something that feels exciting, that feels uplifting and joyful, where you feel confident in what you're making and where you feel that you are aligned truly with what you're doing and where there's momentum. The being in creative flow can help you to live your life with so much ease and confidence. When you're creating art, and in order to get into a pattern and a routine and a flow of making art that works for you, what's important is for you to be able to recognize the different ways that art can be approached, the different intentions, the different messages, and the meanings of making art. Because how you might approach making something is quite different one day compared to another day, depending on how you feel. So, making art as a means of self expression is probably the most well known reasons for making art, as well as making art for to have a message, a meaning, give people something aesthetically beautiful to look at and view and experience. So, these images are images that I have made at different times as a means of self expression, and I'll show you some more a little bit later on. Something really important to think about as well is how everybody sees art in different ways. Everybody sees art in the same sort of way that they might see the world differently. So if you were to look at a puddle, this is what I've done here. I've taken a photograph of a puddle and then I asked my friends what they thought they could see in the puddle. And some of them were saying, well, I can see a rabbit on a bike and can see a kangaroo and I can see a goldfish. They were saying different things or different combinations of things. And actually, that could be a bit like when you look in the clouds, look at the sky and see different things in the sky. And when we're in a good place, when we're feeling in flow and feeling attuned to our senses, we can start to see things in more abundant ways, in more variety of ways. We walk down the street and we might see the world in a different way. Sometimes something that was quite mundane, you might see as quite special or unique or interesting or beautiful, something that was quite maybe that you didn't see over and over again, you suddenly start to notice. And that's what happens, that when you're making art, it helps people to be able to see themselves and the world in different ways, and to be able to record your journey in a way that works for you. So here are some other images where I have really lent into expression and embodiment of some challenges. So this was a time when I was experiencing a lot of health issues, which subsequently ended up in major surgery. So it's gynecological issues, like working towards sort of women's health issues is something that I'm really passionate about, helping people to be able to manage those symptoms and manage how they feel about it, the psychological impact of health issues at different stages, not just for women, but for everybody, can really have an impact on us. Like physical and mental health tie in so well, so importantly to kind of see them both, like the mind and the body connect so much. So our body holds on to a lot of the psychological distress. And how often do people get a cold or a headache when they're feeling stressed? That's a prime example of it. But also it can come up in all sorts of other things. But these represent being able to use art for self-expression and being able to use art as a way of connecting with emotions. So what stops creative flow? We often think about creativity as being either creative or not creative. I hear people talking about being a creative person, or, well, I'm just not that creative. And actually, I would call nonsense on that, because, like with anything, we can choose to be creative. We can lean into the part of us, that the identity of being creative, a part of us that's flexible, that's curious, that is leaning towards those things because we want to do them and we enjoy doing them. So rather than thinking, I'm not a creative person, we can consider what sort of things might be blocking creativity and getting in the way of creative flow. And sometimes these things are internal, that are to do with us and to do with our mindset, our emotions, maybe our subconscious mind. Sometimes things are external, so they may be to do with the environment that we're in, the materials that you have, techniques, maybe something about maybe space that you have, or maybe some external expectations or pressures. And actually, these kind of things can really like stop us from stepping into that creative flow. And one thing to remember is that there are times when you might choose to pause for lots of reasons, not just from creativity, but from other activities or other ways of being, or times that you might be forced to pause or stop. And actually, much like if you are clapping, we're doing a clapping motion. Who knows whether the clap that you stop then is the last clap, or whether the gap has just got bigger in between those claps. So that's a bit of a silly thing to think about, but I like to think about that for routines. Rather than thinking I've just given up on something, what if it was just a really big gap between your clap, a really big gap between the last time you were creative and now being creative? So it might be that you haven't been creative for years and years and years, for instance, since you were at school. And rather than thinking, actually, I stopped being creative, consider it to be a pause, and consider it to be completely and entirely possible to get back into that if you choose to do so. So one of the key things that I want to talk about now in relation to creativity and blocks and getting out of that flow state is the nervous system. And without going into lots and lots of depth about the brain and the body, the nervous system, I want to just summarize that our bodies, our brains, our minds respond to things as a way of protecting us. So it doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined or what's visualized, or what's real and what's a memory from a past experience, from something that could have been a scary or traumatic experience. And when our bodies and our senses hear something or smell something, or we get triggered by something, we get into a reaction. We have a reaction within our nervous system that causes us to do different things for protection. And it doesn't always help us do what we want to do. It can stop us from having fun, being able to connect with people. It can stop us from being creative. But then it might make us feel more pressure and quite stuck sometimes. So actually, understanding the nervous system and being kind to ourselves about the nervous system can be a really good way of shifting away from feeling stuck to get back into flow. One way of understanding the different feelings and the different responses the nervous system has is through the different zones of regulation. So rather than leaning in and trying to understand everything about the brain and everything about our neurons and all of those things, which actually scientists still haven't agreed on a lot of these things, I like to be able to think about things in a practical way and in a way that feels manageable to understand. So when we think about zones, we're not necessarily thinking about feelings and emotions specifically, but thinking about an energy. So a red zone might be a really heightened zone, like associated with fight, thinking about kind of being overwhelmed and maybe like particularly angry or feeling kind of really intense. It's a really high intensity section is that red zone, and that can be like really activated by lots of different things. And this is part of the sympathetic nervous system. Then we've got the yellow zone. It's still a heightened alertness and associated with that fight or flight as well, but maybe less, not quite as intense as the red zone. But we're starting to feel anxious, starting to feel like a bit jittery, maybe. Feeling excited is also in that yellow zone. Feeling quite excited compared to anxious energetically is very similar, but the meaning is different. And how we place a meaning of experiences depends on how much control we have and how we imagine that to be. So we can choose to be excited about something that we might have otherwise been nervous and anxious about. Then we've got the blue zone. This is when we're in a really like low energy phase, feeling really sad, feeling depressed, feeling like lots of apathy. Maybe our body language changes depending on which zone this is. This is associated a lot with being in a freeze state. In terms of the nervous system, we talk about freeze. And then finally, we've got that green zone. The green zone is what we strive for. Being able to feel calm, focused, connected, happy, ready to create, being in flow. And sometimes we would consider the blue and green zones to be quite similar because people often typically talk about fight or flight as being really heightened and up here. And then they might talk about being calm, but they might then forget about freeze. We can talk about flop as well within this dynamic too. They might forget about freeze, or when you are in freeze, what it can sometimes look like is not doing very much, and that can look like relaxing to some people, but it doesn't feel relaxing. So this is what I've just been talking about. So we've got these two settings of the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, where we're in that sympathetic for stress, fight or flight, really heightened and alert, and then aiming for a parasympathetic, which is more about rest and digest and restore. But actually, we're not quite as straightforward as that. Our bodies are complex. We just try to understand them in a way that makes sense to us. But freeze is in the parasympathetic too. We're down here for freeze, but it doesn't feel calm. It just feels like numb and shut down and a bit rubbish, really. And that's how we can feel quite stuck. So, a good way of understanding emotional regulation, this can be demonstrated through art. You can choose different art activities to activate your nervous system. If you're feeling flat, if you're feeling in freeze, and you intentionally do something to get unstuck, gradual movements. It could be a piece of artwork that is matching where you're feeling, that can gradually loosen up that freeze energy, and then you can get into this optimum state. That we're in that middle bit that's demonstrated in this picture, that middle bit of optimal arousal, that's the green zone. That's us being in flow. Where if something happens that's stressful, that triggers us, that maybe causes us to feel a certain emotion, then we might be triggered to feel a certain thing, but then we get regulated back into that green zone, into that window of tolerance that we can cope with. Whereas if we were constantly switched on in this top section of hyperarousal, constantly in survival mode, constantly in fight or flight, that can be really even the smallest thing can feel really stressful, or even the smallest thing can feel really upsetting, and it can feel like really hard to get out of. So having an image of art there demonstrates just how you can make an intentional choice to make some art that either aligned with where you are or connects with where you want to be. And there's such a nuance with that. So part of like what I can help you with the Creative Flow program is to be able to consider what sort of things could be useful for you. All in all, you are striving for calm, fun, and flow. So when you're feeling safe, when you're feeling in flow and you're feeling in that calm state of mind and your body feels safe, you can be open to expression, being curious. You can ask questions of things. You can maybe make mistakes, allow yourself to experiment. And that's where the fun happens, really. So right now, I want to encourage you just to spend a moment doing some things that can help to regulate and reset your nervous system. So there's lots and lots of things that can be helpful. And the more you do this, the more you can learn what sort of things specifically help you. Because sometimes people find certain things that one other person might find useful, they might not like. So, box breathing is a very common breath work technique where you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold, and then you exhale. And you can do that a number of times. When you're thinking about your breathing, the important thing about your breathing is being aware of your breath. So noticing how deep you're breathing, allowing yourself to breathe through your nose and out through your mouth. allowing the out breath to be longer. Is that something you've noticed? Allowing yourself to notice the temperature of your breath or notice any physical sensations. Next up, we've got a sensory reset. So this is about observation. So you can look around and see things. So I'm going to be inviting you just to spend a few moments looking around, really kind of being aware of 3 things you can see, touch, and hear. It might be that you allow yourself longer to really pay attention to the sounds around you, or really pay attention to how you are sitting in your chair and how you notice the feel of your socks on your feet, for instance. So mindfulness is something that is really important for helping with creativity, because the more aware you are of yourself and the world around you, the more you can see and notice and develop in your art practice and in your creativity. The final thing, a bit of micro movement. Allow yourself to stretch, shake off any tension that you have. It might be that there's little things in your hands. It might be that rubbing your hands together can be a really good way of releasing any tension. It might be that you want to grip your fingers together. This fits quite well with a technique called anchoring. Some people who use stimming might find that this is helpful as well as a way of regulating your nervous system, and fits with the meridian points of tapping as well. Lots and lots of things with that, so that's going to have to come for another time. But hopefully being able to allow yourself right now to do those things, and maybe that's something that you could do later on, or maybe you might want to pause this video so that you can spend a bit more time allowing yourself to have a reset. So the next activity I want to encourage you to do, and you can take as long as you like with this, is about having a transformation, creating something that represents that stuck feeling in a freeze state, feeling in a state where you can't make anything, where you can't get past anything, where you feel frustrated perhaps, or you're feeling kind of that there's something stopping you that's blocked. So I'm going to encourage you to draw something, to create something that represents that, and spend as long as you like on that. It could just be a few minutes, or it could be longer. It could be symbols or shapes. It could be the energy that you use to draw, the type of materials that you use to draw with that gives you an energetic feeling of freeze. The colours, for instance, might be important to you. And then I'd like you to create a second image that represents that being in flow, being in the green zone, feeling aligned with your creativity and ready, raring to go, feeling excited about the art that you're going to make. And that could be a separate picture. So you could have one picture that feels like about freeze, the other side could be about flow. Or you might choose to combine them in some way. Your artistic license can be used for whatever you like. You can do anything with this. It's just an invitation. So the encouragement is for you to be able to make something to understand what it's like for you when you're feeling stuck, and understand what it's like for you when you're feeling in flow, when you're feeling connected with your creativity and able to do things and expanded, and so many different words that fit in with this. So that is the get into creative flow task number 2. And you can spend longer on this if you want to, or you can just spend a few short minutes. And now I'd like you to hear a little bit and introduce to you the Creative Flow program, because this is something that I feel is so important to be able to. I'm so passionate about being able to help people to get into creative flow for so many reasons. So I used to be an art teacher. I was an art teacher for 11 years, teaching secondary art. And one of the things about that was that people could create things knowing that they had the techniques, learning those techniques and being taught those techniques, but also being encouraged to develop ideas and to develop projects. And the reason why I then left teaching to retrain to be an art therapist is that whilst I loved art, and I still absolutely do, art is my passion. As an artist, it's always been there, always been a part of me. I wanted to help people, and I wanted to help people therapeutically using art. And essentially, I cared more about people's well-being than about what grades they got at their exams. So that's why these different things weave into the work that I do now. So there will be times during this creative flow program where the support that I give you will be from the position of being an art therapist, that making art in a therapeutic way, creating something that helps you emotionally, psychologically, might help you think about kind of some of your experiences and reframe them, or might help you to regulate and like manage your nervous system or process some emotions. And then there might be times when I put on that art teacher hat, where I step into that role of teacher and tutor and artist, where there might be a specific technical skill that you are requiring to learn, or ideas, an abundance of ideas that we can share together and bounce ideas off each other to get those creative juices flowing. Sometimes I would say to people, your art and self-expression isn't about doing something perfectly, but it's about experimenting and stepping into who you are, and what you want to express is important. Doesn't need to be perfect. However, this is your opportunity to do that and learn those techniques, because I know for sure, I can guarantee that you will be able to express yourself more authentically and ease and process those emotions and be able to be more true to yourself if you have also got those skills and also got some strategies to work and make art in a way that actually aligns with what you want to express. I don't want to be blocking your creativity by choosing to only show up as an art therapist, because that would not be helpful for you. But when I can show up as an artist, art therapist, and an art teacher, you get the whole lot from me. And you essentially just need to work with me to see what sort of things are helpful for you. So part of this 4-month group program will allow you to have that really deep dive experience to boost your creativity. We've got proven methods to overcome obstacles and get into creative flow. It's not just about art, but about creativity overall. There's a sense about the mindset too. Being able to explore and express your true self using art therapeutically. As I said before, improving your technical art skills will help you to express yourself in a more intentional way. Then allow yourself to feel supported and inspired. Because when we do the group sessions, that's where the magic happens. That's where you get that additional accountability. Because then in between sessions, you can allow yourself to be creative and play and express yourself and be relaxed with what art you're making. So what is covered in this program is you've got two options. Ultimately, you've got two options for this program. We start in June, and you can either go for the Creative Flow experience, which is £444 or 10% off in April, or the Creative Flow Immersion experience. That's at £777 and 10% off in April. If you go for the Creative Flow experience, you will be working with the group primarily. We have a hybrid experience where you've got your 8 coaching sessions where we deep dive and we explore and reflect together. And I share with you some of those techniques and some of those mindset strategies in those sessions. Then we've got 4 informal art making studio sessions. They're once a month. So this is a deep dive. This is an opportunity for you to get in flow. Sometimes we can talk forever about what art to do, but this is a chance for you, if you haven't already done any art during that week, to come online, sit with your art materials out. I'll be making art as well in my studio in those sessions, and have a space together where you maybe use a space as like a body doubling session. Sometimes it's so much easier to be able to make something when there's other people around creating too. That's an optional thing. It's a bit of an extra, bit of a bonus. Then we've got the self-study digital content, and this allows you to get started and understand yourself ahead of the group session started. So there's workbooks, there's videos, there's content relating to understanding creative flow, understanding some of the foundations of art making, so that you can get used to working on your projects, and then we can lean into those creative coaching sessions when the live sessions start in June. Everybody has a one-to-one session, regardless of which package you go for, because I would like to have a really personalized approach, and for you to be able to have feedback from me about your artwork, about the creative projects that you have, so that you don't feel like left alone, and that you don't feel that you maybe have some questions that if you've got any questions that you want to ask me, or you want to get some specific feedback, or if there's a particular block that you are wanting some help to overcome, then you can use that one-to-one session for that purpose. Like, it's purely up to you how you use it, and you can use that at any time from when you book to any time in the 4 months that the program's on. Then with the Creative Flow Immersion upgrade, I would call it an upgrade, because everything that you get in the Creative Flow experience, you get as well as 4 more one-to-one sessions, and these are about 75 minutes each, so we go for quite a long time. We allow you to really kind of dig deep. If there's any limiting beliefs that you are needing to maybe work through, then we can explore those in the context of your art and in the context of making something more personalized. So it feels like that there's just an option for everybody. I'm seeing people who are maybe leaning into this because they're wanting to make art in a therapeutic way. They're wanting to use art as a means of healing, creative healing, as well as people who are already making a lot of art, but they're wanting to make it more aligned to themselves, that they've maybe changed how they're doing. Or it might be somebody that you might be in a position where you've been working in a way that you've been maybe just cracking on with it, getting on making art, but actually you come to a point in your life where you want to maybe change the types of art that you make and do something completely different, make something more for you, rather than doing something that you feel that that there's a bit of a should about it, that you feel that you ought to do. So it's doing what's aligned with you, not what you ought to do. So if you haven't already, scan this QR code. This will send you to a page that's got more information about what's included, and any questions are in there as well. And I would absolutely love to welcome you inside the Creative Flow program. And if you have any questions and you want to get in touch with me, either contact me on my socials or send me an email. In terms of any final thoughts and reflections, or if anyone's got any questions, I've just said that, send me an email or send a message in my socials. I like to think about this as a lifelong experience. The Creative Flow program isn't just a case of come along to the sessions, bish bash bosh, I've watched what Leslie said. I'm not going to do anything now for like the rest of the 2 weeks. And then I'll come back to the sessions. Have a lovely time. That'll be nice. And there we go. It's great, sort of thing. If you want to, you can get a lot out of the sessions by coming along and being present. If you're fully present, if you're coming along and you're maybe not that into it, maybe you're not kind of really wanting to be part of it, but you're curious, then you can still get a lot out of it. But the more you put in, the more you will get out of this program. And if you've got questions in between sessions and you want to get in touch with me, you can. If you've got a piece of artwork that you want me to just have a look at, you can email that to me, or you can share it with me, or tag me in your social media posts if you're sharing anything with anybody. So send me it as a message. So the more you put in, the more you will get out. And I would absolutely love for you to come and join me inside the Creative Flow. So that's all for now. And happy creating. I think, therefore I am. I create, therefore I live.